All right. So the market have shifted. And this is what you need to know. I'm sure you've heard of the term the seller's market. And what that pretty much means is there were more buyers than there were sellers. So if you were a homeowner, you pretty much got what you wanted. A home sold quickly. But if you were a buyer, you really had to come up and show up. You had to make sure you went, asking price. If you needed closing costs, you weren't getting anything. If you needed some repairs, most likely it wasn't going to be done because there was another buyer who may be interested and will get the property as is, no inspections. And we just came out of one of the strongest buyers markets. Strongest sellers market, which was during the COVID times, where sellers were literally getting homes offers 20, 30, 40, $50,000 above asking. In fact, I remember there was this condo for sale in Altamont Springs, and I had a buyer interested. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, and we went up $10,000 above asking price. And the seller's agent called me, the listing agent called me and was laughing. He goes, "Man, I don't mean to be mean, but we actually have 42 offers. Yours is conventional. The other 41 offers are cash buyers, and they're going above and beyond. No, there's no inspection period. There's nothing. Um, they even had one offering free pizza for a whole year every Friday, up to $50, which was insane. And it's kind of crazy to think of that. And I think a lot of sellers are having that mindset. Well, I could still price high. It may not be that high, but I could still price and get what I want. Well, right now we're in a buyer's market. There's a lot of news saying that things are balancing out. It's a very strong balance, I would say. In my opinion, I say we're in a strong buyer's market. It is buyers are getting closing costs covered, prices below asking. Things are getting more towards a buyer's, is favoring the buyer. The good news is interest rates are coming down. And if you are a buyer, this is your moment to get a home, especially if you're getting new construction. New constructions, they're always giving above and beyond. But now it's a lot better time for you. But in other resale houses, you can still get closing costs covered. There's down payment assistance offers, repairs replaced, because guess what? Sellers, they want to sell them homes. And if you look on the MLS, if you look at homes, there's a lot of homes that are for sale that's been for sale for over 6 months. 2023 was 2024 was one of the worst real estate years in that we've had for since the past 30 years. Since it hasn't been that bad since 1994. That's the amount of sales that we've had. It wasn't as bad as since then. So just to put into perspective, it was a tough year to sell your home. If you were a buyer, hey, it was pretty easy for you to find something. But if you were a seller, um, I'm sure you're probably upset first at your real estate agent. Hey, what's going on? No, I can't sell my house, but it's not 100% their fault. You have to understand the economy. The economy is pretty tough. If you look online, there's a lot of homes for sale that's been on the market for a long time. But as a seller, what should you do? You have to understand the market. You have to understand that um, that we're in a buyer's market, or we're headed towards a buyer's market. Expect the home to be on there for a little bit. Expect there to not be as many buyers. And I've noticed the buyers that we're having now, they're recovering from the financial crisis that we were politically in, and we're kind of, getting out of it. If you look at the financial state of all, US Americans, a credit card debt is so high. Inflation is so high. The prices of eggs were so ridiculous not too long ago. Price of everything has gone up so much, people can't afford anything. And that's why I've been getting people who are, who live in big cities like Orlando, Tampa, or Miami, actually willing to live out in the country because, out in Lake Wells, Polk County, Highlands County, because the homes are almost half as much of the price of bigger cities, but they're willing to make the drive. I have a lot of people going to Ocala, and they work in Orlando. They're driving an hour and a half to work every day. It's crazy, but they could buy a house because the apartment that's in Orlando is such a tiny apartment, costs way more than their 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Ocala or in Lake Wells or in Highlands County, and they're going out there. But if you're a seller, here are some things you have to understand. it's gonna be a little bit longer. Your home's gonna sit probably a little bit longer on the market. Buyers are gonna have a little bit more negotiating skills, and there is gonna be some competition between you and other sellers in the neighborhood. You know, so it's a big battle you're gonna have to fight. One, but here's what you could do. First step is make sure you price the home right. Now, your home value could be really high, but what it's selling for is going to be a lot lower. And you have to understand, when you do a CMA, which is, when a realtor comes to you and shows you the home value, your value could be really high, but you have to be a little bit realistic. It's, the price high sounds great. And trust me, if we could sell it for $1 million more than it was worth, we would do it. But you have to understand the price of the home, the value. So in a buyer's market doesn't match the sales price. A lot of it's been selling for $10,000 to $15,000 less, and that's after it's been on the market for about 100 days, and then the seller drops the price, and then it goes under contract. So think about that ahead of time. And then second step is making a first impression, curb appeal. If you have a big house, any house, small house, the appearance, the first impressions people see are going to be online. Make sure you hire a real estate agent who is not taking photos with their cell phone. It drives me insane when I see, people who sell their property and they have an agent and they use a cell phone to take photos. Like, good night. You know, have someone that, takes really good photos of the home. They hire a professional photographer of the home. Next, you want to make sure your home is actually looking nice. Make sure the lawn's cut. Make sure you have a nice curb appeal. That's the first thing that people are going to see in the first photo is the curb appeal. That's like, that's the clickbait. They're going to see the house and it's going to attract them into the home. Make sure the home has, check through any repairs. Talk to the agent. If there's any known repairs, the biggest things are going to be things that will be an issue to close the loan. If the roof is 30 years old, 20 years old, if there's leaking, if there's plumbing issues, electrical issues, if there's any known issues with the home, it's going to impact the sale, it's going to impact the price, and it may be a little bit beneficial to you to fix that ahead of time and then put your home on the market. Where where an option will be, hey, like with the roof, there's other companies which, it may be hard to do this right now to change the roof, but there's companies who will replace the roof and close at closing, but you would, announce that in your description. So that's going to be the thing. Fix your home, get it prepped and ready, declutter, clean, and also make sure it smells good. There's a lot of homes that have pets, there's smoking, or it may have mold. You want to take care of those issues. If it has mold, there's companies that are clean that. If you have, if you smoke, or if the house that you're selling was owned by a previously smoker and you're now taking in charge of it to sell it for them, clean it up. There's companies you could hire to go and clean, mop the walls. I've seen houses where literally the walls are like, you're thinking it's like a yellow paint. You're like, oh, this looks nice. And then you move the photo and it's like a white frame. And like when it moves, it's like a little stickiness. It ends up being gross. And then your eyes really see the house is filthy. And it wards off buyers. And if the buyer still really wants that house, the price is going to drop significantly. So keep that in mind. And also with pets, I know you love your pets, but keep in mind, sometimes you may not smell what other people smell. But if you have pets, open the windows, vacuum, clean, wipe things down. If they have food, cover the food, bathe the animal. It makes the smell it could be a beautiful house, but it puts so much fear into buyers. They will walk away from a really good deal when, we could just hire a cleaning, like when the house is gone, you can just hire a cleaning company and get rid of a lot of that, pretty much all the smell. A lot of it sometimes in furniture, if you have a furniture that, that's not like a leather, it's more like a, cotton or some sort of fabric, it holds on to a lot of that smell. So when you remove, the fabric, a lot of the smell leaves. And then there's companies you could hire to clean up the whole house, which will eliminate a lot of smells. There's machines you could order called like an ozone machine. That'll, make sure there's no pets or humans inside the house when you use that, but it'll eliminate all the smell. And trust me, I've had to use this in the past. One is, as a seller, you're gonna have to be open to negotiating. I've had some deals where it's been on the market forever and ever, and the sellers just do not want to budge a dollar. It is what it is. Take it or leave it. And then come to find out, it's on the market for a long time, and it's like, why hasn't my home sold? I'm like, well, we had 20 offers, but you won't negotiate a little bit. We're in a tough market. We're gonna have to give or take something. You have to keep that in mind. Negotiate a little bit. It'll help you. If it's making it to the closing table, it's better, because the longer it takes on the market, people are going to have a mindset: what's wrong with the house? Why haven't people um, why haven't people accepted the offer? What's going on? Is it priced way too high? Then they see it as taking advantage of your house, and by the time it's on the market for over 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, maybe a year, you become desperate, and then you just drop the price and just say, fine, here, take it, where you could have negotiated a little bit. So think about that. And buyers are kind of like this in the same way. When they don't know what they want and they're looking and they don't have a good agent helping them out, they get to a point where they just see any house and they're just fine. Just get this house. I don't know what, just go for it. You don't want to go to that point, because it's a huge financial thing that you're getting into. So you have to be willing to give or take. Have that cost of mindset. If you're not willing to negotiate, take your home off the market and just wait for a better time. But if you have to sell, remember, when you go and buy another property, you're going to have to sell as well. So just keep that in mind. So other incentives is to make your home more attractable. Offer closing costs. Say, hey, I'm willing to give $5,000 towards closing costs. Or if there's known issues, if you have an older house with older appliances, older things, say, hey, I'm going to give you a 1-year home warranty. That costs $1,000. You could add it to the sale. You could add it to the price of the home. It attracts buyers, because buyers want to say, you know what, they do have these things. The AC works. The water heater works. The roof is good. But the home warranty that you have included, it costs $850 to $900, and it covers everything: appliances, TVs, and everything. It makes them think, you know what, I think this is a good deal. And guess what? They're probably not going to ask to make repairs or to drop so much, because you're giving them something already in advance. If you're saying, hey, we'll give you, I'm just throwing a number, we'll give you $5,000 for closing. In their mindset, they're like, okay, this is great. Or $3,000 for closing costs. We're willing to do this. This kind of presets them to not ask for more. They're saying, hey, you know what? They're willing to give something. Let's kind of work with this, because we could do something. They're willing to negotiate. It really does help. And then also work with a skilled real estate agent. Hopefully that's me. Hopefully you use me. But if you're not in this area, hopefully use an agent who knows what they're doing, who's not just brand new, who's never done this before, who doesn't know how to weed out the wholesalers. Because right now, wholesalers are out targeting these people, and they're like, yeah, I have an offer for you. And let's say your house is $300,000. They'll say, hey, I have an offer for you, $250,000 cash, $250 cash. And you're kind of desperate. Fine, sure. Well, they write you some bogus offer, and the real estate agent is kind of happy, because he's probably hasn't seen one of these before, and you go ahead and accept it, but you don't read all the terms, shamefully. And I'm telling you from horror stories that I've heard before, or from for sale by owners. This has happened a lot. And then they don't put an escrow until after their inspection period. So they have zero like skin in the game. And then, so what they do, they go and market the property to their investors, to their friends, and they'll list it for 270, 280. And then they're like, all right, once they get a buyer under contract, what they'll do is they'll do a double close, and they will, at the day of closing, you get your $250,000, and then they get their $20 to $25,000 that they net from selling it to somebody else. And that's what wholesalers do. It's a tough game for them. I call them equity thieves, but you accepted the offer, and that's if they do it successfully. But most times is they hold you hostage under contract for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, with that escrow pending, that they haven't put any money in. And if they can't find a buyer, they're like, oops, sorry, my bad. Can't find someone. Have a good one. And they cancel. So your home's been off the market for such a long time. Your hopes are ready. You probably spent money on moving costs. You've probably done a bunch of stuff, and you have um, zero profit to gain from it. It just ends up hurting you. Definitely don't want you to deal with that. Now, things that you should avoid is ignoring. If you're a seller, you should ignoring the reality of what's going on. You have to understand that, we're now in a buyer's market. The media would say things are balancing out. No, it's not. Buyers, every buyer I've had so far, closing costs covered, down payment assistance covered, roofs put on, repairs made. They got it all. They've been getting everything they wanted. I mean, that's unheard of. Like, they're moving into houses, and sometimes they get paid at closing. The buyers get paid at closing. This wasn't normal 2023, 2022. 2024, from mid 2024 till now, things have been changing big time. Neglecting to make the repairs. When buyers put an offer on your house, they're going to do a home inspection, and they have an appraisal to do, unless it's cash. But cash is not going to give you full, most likely it's not going to give you full price. But if there's repairs in the home, fix those, because the inspector is going to go in there and it's going to nitpick every little issue in the house. And you would want, the buyers pay them to do that. They pay them like $600 to do all of that. You're going to want to, when you buy your house, for someone to go and nitpick every little detail. So that way, it may not be, so big, but when I have a client, we put an offer on a house and there's one major issue and it's not really a big major issue. It builds confidence in them to, hey, let's continue with the sale. Let's go forward. But if we are under contract and there's like 20 major issues on there, we have choices. Either drop the price, fix the major issues, because the property is probably not going to, the loan can't go through because it won't pass the 4-point wind mitigation for insurance, and it's probably not going to pass for the appraisal. So you're going to have to make these repairs, or we're just going to be like, this is just way too much. Let's get to the next property. And, you want to eliminate all that. Go around the house. You can. It'll cost a little bit extra. You can pre-order an inspection and go throughout the house. And you could either do it where you walk the house with them and you can mark it yourself, and that'll be a little bit cheaper. Or you could actually pay, it's like $300 and have them go through your house. And it gives you a great to-do list to preset everything, which makes it a lot easier for you to sell your home. So that way, when you get the inspection, you could show them the update, fix everything. You could post it on there. That's going to be a huge plus. The next thing that's going to be that you should avoid is not wanting to negotiate. I kind of talked about this earlier, but if you're not going to negotiate at all, I would say just take your home off the market. You have to understand where we're at. If you have to know your goal, either rent out your property, pull out a loan and buy something else and wait till the market changes. That's an option. Rent your property out, have it pay the bills, get a little bit extra. That's an option. And then use the equity that you have for this house to purchase your next one. You could do that. Or if you're not going to budge at all, take it off the market, because you're just going to stress yourself out. It's going to hurt you. Sometimes waiting a little bit helps. I had one property, when this is right before Davenport blew up. This was probably like 2017, 2018. A guy, he just bought his house, and then he got engaged. She has her own house, but it was in Orlando, and that house was a little bit closer to everyone's work. So he decided to sell this house to move over there. But when the neighborhood he was going to sell is a brand new neighborhood, and not just that, there was a ton of homes that were being built, and it was zero way to sell it to make back what you gain on, especially if you bought it just a few months prior. And I mentioned, rent your property out just temporarily until this area stops building, because you're competing against the new construction. New construction is giving warranties, giving closing costs covered, lower interest rates. They're giving the whole 9 yards. You have the same house, same price point, but it's used. It's a no-brainer. People are going to go for the one that's going to get them a better deal. They're going to go for that house. So you have to think about that. Keep that in mind. So sadly, it didn't go that way, and he sold it for less. But if he would have just waited 2 years renting it out, and it would have covered the cost plus an extra $100, and he would have done great. He could have sold that property for $200,000 more. It's insane. And sometimes you may have to wait. It's good, but you need a realtor to tell you, hey, You're in a good area, sell. You know what? You're not in a good area. It may not be wise for you to sell. So I wish you would have listened. Um, but that's something, something you really have to think about. There's other, I've seen, a lot of times when I see a house that's in the area, just tell them flat out, it's, your market value is here. The price to sell, we're going to have to go down here to compete with the new houses. Yeah, you may have an extra 5 feet of land, or you may have one little upgrade to the house, but it doesn't compete when, interest rates were at least now I would say interest rates are in the 6%, but the new construction are giving 4.5. You can't compete. That's so much, they're saving hundreds of dollars per month. They're going to go with that one. So just kind of think about how buyers are. One is failing to market your home efficiently. Now, this is where you need to hire a good real estate agent, because just putting your home on the MLS doesn't do the job. I mean, maybe in the seller's market it'll work. You could just pop it online, but you know what? It takes an agent to do open houses, and people say open houses don't work. Well, they do. If you don't do it efficiently, if you don't know how to do it right, yeah, it doesn't work. Not all places are great for open houses. Some places are better than others. But marketing the property, if you don't know how to do social media, if you don't know how to use AI to market the property, if you don't know how to do reverse marketing, or your agent doesn't know how to do all these certain things to reach out to clients, to let them know, to find buyers, to use the MLS to see where certain parts of the country are, you have buyers looking in this area. If your agent's not doing that, then you may want to reconsider, because you want to have someone who knows what's selling, and see who's looking at your home, market to those people. We have these heat maps online, and most people don't take these classes to learn. But there's heat maps where you can see weekly, and you should get a weekly notification of showing you where the searches are from, what websites are coming from. In the last 30 days, if the property is going like this, or if it's at zero, find out why it's at zero. It could be the price, or it could be some other issue. But putting your home on the market just to put it on the market will not sell. I mean, in today's market, if it'll sell, it's going to be because it's a good price. But when there's a lot of competition, you need someone to help you go a little bit above and beyond. Now, here are some stumbling blocks that might be an issue, is having too much emotional attachment to the property. Um, you know, you have to detach yourself from the home if you're selling it. You have to understand why, and remember, and kind of keep telling yourself, why are you selling the property? Is it because you want to move to another location? Is it because you have to sell? You have no choice. I mean, if you don't want to sell the property, don't sell it. But if there's a need that you need to sell it, kind of put that in your head all the time, and get the goal to, let's just sell the property, and let's try to make the most we can out of it. But the goal is to sell the property fast. Another stumbling block is having unrealistic expectations. Thinking that we're back in the COVID times where we're having multiple bids, people offering above and beyond, free pizza, Netflix, they're doing it all. It's not happening. So kind of have that in mind. Know what your what's the market, what's going on in the market. Make sure you have that. And then also being resistant to the feedback. We're, from time to time, we get buyers to come in, and we're going to call the agents to say, hey, we want feedback. Don't be so upset with the feedback. Take those feedback as opportunity to change. Oh, I don't like the price. The house is way too high. All right, consider, maybe is it just one person or 5 other people saying, the price is too high? Or, I like the house, but, it was too blah for me, or it smelled bad, or it just needed too much repair. Take that into consideration, and your agent may have a bunch of people who they may be able to connect you with to help fix out that stuff. There's so much more into it. I kind of spent 30 minutes, but we're in a buyer's market. I think we're in a buyer's market, and I think this buyer's market is going to be short term, and then we'll go into a balanced market, because I see interest rates dropping, and there's going to be a short window. But because interest rates are so high, sellers need to do whatever they can to get them in the door. But once interest rates drop, I would say below 5, I would say then we will be in a balanced market where sellers and buyers will negotiate on better terms. But right now, buyers are pretty much getting away with everything. And if you're a buyer, take advantage now. And if you're a seller, kind of understand, have that mindset. One, we cannot predict the future. Hopefully everything gets better in the future. That's what we all hope for. Regardless who's in power, we want the future to be better. But just keep in mind, and sorry, I just had a call. And keep this in mind, just because we're in a seller's market or buyer's market, if you're selling your home, you may want to buy your home too. So what you do lose on the sale of your home, you may be able to gain that in the next home. So if you're giving up $5,000 here, I'll probably get you $10,000 on your next house. So um, just keep that in mind. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, 407-790-6232, or go to livingin polk.com.